I may not be always right. There's going to be a lot of times I'm probably not right. But one thing I will do is I'm going to always be present.
Most men walk the earth isolated and quiet and, quite frankly, miserable.
What we realize is there's a negative notation out there and a stereotype that black fathers aren't involved in their family, period.
There are times where I'm like, I feel, quite frankly, unequipped. You know, I struggle with that.
He asks me all the time, like, hey, do you remember this? Do you remember this? And I'm sorry, Larry.
Kevin, what's going on, man? Welcome to the Dad Edge, dude. I am so glad to have you.
Oh, thank you for having me, Larry. It's a long time coming. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you too, man. This topic that we're going to talk about really started when you were 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So, fatherhood. Growing up in the Bronx, my mother and my father migrated here from Jamaica. I'm not really too sure on the story if they met in Jamaica. I think they knew each other in Jamaica, but they became a couple when they came here in New York. It's my younger brother, and I have an older sister as well. My older sister has a different father. But when they migrated over here, my brother and I are the only ones that were born in the United States. And my father got in a little bit of trouble when he got over here. And I can remember when I was about 7 years old, I witnessed my father being arrested in front of me. And my whole trajectory of kind of, having a relationship with him started while he was in prison, because I had to visit him a lot in prison. Me and my father have a tremendous close relationship, but not being able to come to my basketball games, not being able to, speak to him when I wanted, advice on dating, girls, not being able to navigate emotions with him when I was going through my adolescence was truly, truly challenging for me.
Why was he arrested?
So he was arrested. It was a three strikes law. Prior, he was arrested for dealing narcotics. But the last time he got his life clean, he was actually working. And somebody had harassed my sister on the block that we lived on, and he just went over there, to defend my sister, who was his stepdaughter, and just politely say, please, leave my children alone. But at that time, if you had a previous criminal record, and you had any engagement with the police, it was called the 3 strikes rule, and was during the crime bill time. He was arrested again and deported back to Jamaica. And it's very, horrific because recently we just had a lawyer look at his case, and he said, my father, if this had happened today, my father would have been home a long time ago. And what happened to him was, kind of an extreme measure, I would say, to discipline him, I guess, through the judicial system.
So did he go to prison, or was he deported back to Jamaica? Or
so
both?
he went to prison first, and then he got deported back to Jamaica.
Wow. And you were 7?
Yeah, I was really young at that time, really young. So I tell you, the last time, like before I even went to high school, that was like the last time I got opportunity to see him. And man, it was very, very, challenging time. I can remember like you could attest to Larry, when you go through that 13 to 17-year-old, you're in high school, you're trying to figure things out. You don't know if you want to be somebody who's an athlete. You don't know if you want to be somebody who's a lover boy or whatever. You're going into those different emotions and feelings, and not having a strong male figure in your life. My mother did a tremendous job. Angel, beautiful woman in my life that took care of me and my siblings, but not having the father figure in the household was something that was missing in my life.
Man, but being 7 years old, like, did this arrest happen like at your house?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I was literally on top of the steps with my brother. And I remember the officers coming to the house, and my father was like, hey, I didn't do anything. I just went over there to have a conversation, and they arrested him. I just remember tears coming down I don't have a lot of memories from my childhood, but a lot of the memories I do have from my childhood weren't really good ones. That's why fast forward today, being the father of 3 beautiful children, Brooke, Kate, and Caleb, I make it my mission to make sure that they have beautiful, wonderful memories of their childhood, especially with their father and mother.
Wow, man. And you mentioned that you visited him
Yeah.
in jail.
Hmm.
Were you just a little guy at the time, like
Yeah,
7, 8, 9
yeah.
years old?
I was a little kid at the time. My brother and I, my mother used to dress us in like matching outfits. My father was really into fashion back in the day, and just connecting with him. I even had it was a horrible joke. I didn't know it was a joke, but I said like the best food I would get was from like the vending machines in the prisons because that's how much I was there all the time, and I used to look forward to going to see him and having that discourse, having that meal with him because family meals are important, sitting down, and it's so sad that I had to navigate to that being the best type of meals I had with my father, at that particular time. But yeah, I used to visit him in prison a lot when he was in there.
Do you mind me asking what the conversations were like?
I,
Just sitting with him.
to be honest, I don't remember. At
Yeah.
those times, I really don't remember. Um, of course, how school was going on. You playing basketball. He's a huge Knicks fan, so we used to always talk about basketball. So I'm pretty sure the conversation surrounded that. And of course, those times, we were acting up. So of course, disciplinary, come on, you can't be doing that. You got to do this, things of that nature. So I'm pretty sure the conversations, revolved that. But it was very traumatic, I tell you that, because, even talking to you now, like I go through the emotions of, not having him around. Me and him have a great relationship. I have seen him later on in life, as I got older. But me and him have a great relationship. We talk at least at minimum once a week. Actually, we're in the process of trying to get him back into the United States right now, to see his grandchildren, and be able to, grow old, with us. He's getting up there in age, and he hasn't been, in the United States for over 2 decades. So, I think it's time for him to bring him back.
Wow. And how long has he been out of prison?
Oh, years. I played over
Yeah.
20 something years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long was he in prison for?
That question, Larry, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure on, but I know it was a good chunk of his life. So I want to say roughly between 8 to 10 years, probably a good
Wow.
chunk. But I don't have a definite answer on that. Um, my mother was very like private, with discussing, some of the things that my father has went through. Not saying that he wasn't a horrible person, but he did do something that was something that wasn't the right thing, and he did try to change his life around, which I commend him on. It wasn't like he wasn't trying to change his life around. It was just an unfortunate situation that kept him away from his family.
Wow, man. And you mentioned that, he was incarcerated during like these years of like high school, right?
Yeah,
It's like those are the years that I think it's like that 11 to 17. I really think
yeah,
is like these pivotal ages for a young man to have a good man in his
yeah.
life. Did you when you were growing up, did you I grew up in a kind of a similar situation as you. My dad wasn't arrested, but he left,
Hmm.
and so I didn't see him. And I definitely felt this void. And I got to be honest, man. Like it's really hard for me to put words to it. Like it's almost like it would show up a lot like what you were talking about. Like, how do I go talk to this girl? What do I do on a date? What do I do if somebody picks on me? Do I fight back? Do I walk away? Like, what do I do? Like, it was all these things that I didn't realize how much it meant that I had a guy like that in my life until I was confronted with some of these things. I'm like, this is not a mom thing. This is a dad thing. Was it the same for you?
It, you are so spot on because you're thinking about situations that a normal teenager goes through,
Yeah.
especially as a young boy. How do I navigate dating life? How do I navigate, academics? A lot of teenage young boys want to be athletes. So getting that positive affirmation, especially with a specific sport, and most importantly, something that I went through a lot was in high school, I didn't know what type of man I wanted to be, what type of boy I wanted to be. I think when I was growing up and you don't have that father figure, you navigate to different other, areas. So you might listen to music. You might watch television shows or movies. You might see people in your neighborhood that you might consider esteemed gentlemen because of the way they carry themselves, but you don't necessarily know what they're doing. So you're taking bits and pieces of things that you're seeing on the exterior. But when you have a father, when you have a man in your life, you get to learn more about the interior, which is something that really needs to be focused on from the 11 to 17. So yeah, I navigated a lot of, hardship in those years, where, I was getting into a lot of fights. I got jumped a few times in high school, and I didn't know how to navigate those feelings. Like, hey, what should I do? Should I respond? Should I retaliate? And I'm glad that even though I did not have my father in my life, somebody in my household, I did have other men within the community. I went to church. I still go to church. So I have men of my parish that catered to those needs that I had within myself. I went to private school my entire life. I went to actually an all boys school for high school, which is even worse because you're in a school full of other boys. So you're really trying to navigate those feelings of, manhood. But I did have certain, gentlemen at my school, certain teachers at my school that helped me out to navigate those feelings as well. So yeah, I think within those times, and it's very traumatizing because the sad part about it, Larry, a lot of men go through this. A lot of men haven't had the opportunity to navigate through those feelings, even those with fathers, because typically their father may have not had a father, or their father may have thought providing was going to work all the time and not being there, emotionally, what I mean, and spending time with each other. So it's just something that it's an ecosystem of just trauma that we can continue to pour onto our young boys. That's why when my son was born in 2022, um, I was like, I'm going to reevaluate the way that I carry myself as a man. Not saying I didn't do that from 2015 and 2019 when my daughters were born, but this young boy is going to look up to me to possibly navigate life the same way or similar. And I can't have him navigate life if I'm not living the right way. So yeah, you were spot on with everything you're saying, and I'm sorry, and I think it's important for us to say I'm sorry that you had to go through that. But I'm happy that you're the man that you are today and creating platforms for other fathers to speak their truth and help heal each other.
Back at you, big time, and I mean that.
Yeah.
I think it's I don't know about you, but I'd like to ask you some personal questions about this, just because I feel like you and I are kind of cut from the same cloth. My biological father, he left when I was like 9 months old, and then I had an opportunity to meet him when I was 12, and he came back into my life for like 6 months, and then he headed out again. And then I ran into him by mistake, total accident, at a coffee shop when I was 30.
Wow.
And yeah, man. And then for the past 20 years, kind of like you and your dad, like we've had a good relationship and we've reestablished that. But I'll tell you, I have 4 boys. You have 3. You have 2 daughters, 1 boy. And I think the hardest thing for me, man, and I don't know if you've gone through this, is being that pattern breaker. It's
Yeah.
and the way that I describe it is, it's kind of like this very intense cross to bear of like, I don't know what to do because I don't remember anything that was really good. I remembered a lot what not to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as I'm confronted now with even like things that challenge me or my family or my boys and stuff like that, there are times where I'm like, I feel quite frankly unequipped. I struggle with that. And I
Yeah.
don't know if you feel the same way. I feel like maybe I know the reason I do this mission, and perhaps maybe the reason you do the mission too that you're doing, is because it's just like, well, if I'm going to create something different, I need to do something different, which means I need to learn something different, which means I need to be the first person doing this.
Yeah.
Is that the same for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're trying so much to break these generational curses that we have amongst ourselves because you don't have a blueprint. You try to build a building without a blueprint. Try. What's going to
Right.
happen? It's going to
Yeah.
collapse. And
Yeah.
fatherhood, parenting, family is a blueprint on how you want to potentially organize or have your family or not. And having father of four boys is very powerful, man. Extremely powerful because it gives you the opportunity for you to step into that place where they can look and be like, hey, this is what manhood is. And anytime I'm going through any turmoil where I need advice, I can always go back to my father. And yes, there has been plenty. I remember when my daughter was born, Brooke, 2015. I was petrified, scared, petrified, man, because I'm like, wow, it's not about you anymore. And I was
Mm-hmm.
27 at the time when my daughter was born. I'm like, it's not about you. And when you're in your 20s, I'm talking about, I went to college. I was a frat boy in college. I left. I'm stepping into my career. I'm working towards doing different things to amplify, elevating your career. Oh no, a baby's coming along. And it's like, what do I do? And one thing I promise myself is I'm always going to be there. I'm always going to. And I say that to my children. I'm like, I may not be always right. There's going to be a lot of times I'm probably not right. But one thing I will do is I'm going to always be present. I'm always going to always be able to listen to you and understand, try my best to understand your feelings. I can share tons of stories for the last 10 years, because my daughter's going to be 10 this year, 10 years where I have made mistakes in parenting. But one thing I do know is my two daughters and my son always come to me at the end of the day and they hug me and tell me, Daddy, I love you. And that alone helps elevate and push me forward. There's no the only blueprint to fatherhood is making sure that you're there. You know what I mean? There's no other blueprint. It's always gonna mess up. You could say, hey, I'm going to make sure my kids eat healthy all the time. I'm going to make sure I have them in extracurricular activities all the time. I'm gonna make sure that they're doing exceptionally well in school. Those things may not all happen at the same time, or they may, but for you to understand that you just being present, for them to have access to you, I think that's the most important thing. So yes, to answer your original question, of course, there are plenty of times where I have made tons of mistakes and slip ups, but that's why it's so important of what we're doing right now. You've created a community, Larry, that every time where fathers want to just come somewhere and tap in and just hear what other fathers are going through, because a lot of times us as men, we don't really communicate with each other about our downfalls a lot.
We don't?
Like half the time we're talking to our friends about like
Yeah.
sports or other things, but never like, how you doing, man? Like, what's going on in your life? Like, is there anything I can help you with? Any advice you need? Like, we never have those type of conversations amongst each other, and I think it's very important that we do that. So creating these communities, and what I like to call them tribes, because this is a tribe and a community that we're creating. That, hey, Larry has older sons than I have, and my son is going through his adolescence where I see he's better in academics, but he wants to focus more on athletics. So I could go call Larry, and he's probably went through this before with his child. So get some advice from him, or at least share with him what I'm going through right now. And I think that's important, and that's important why this is very beneficial to fatherhood today and what we're doing.
I agree with you, man. And I think this tribe thing is a very, very powerful thing. I mean, we've had, our tribe, we call it Dad Edge Alliance, since it's almost 10 years now.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's a place where guys can come huddle, right?
yeah.
It's like the plays before football. They huddle up. Hey, what's the plan? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Let's debrief it. Like let's go execute. It's the
Yeah,
same thing. You know, this is, first of all, man. I feel like we're cut from the same cloth. Like
yeah,
I feel like this is
yeah,
this is truly amazing. Um, when I'm curious. Your dad, seeing what it is that you're doing today,
yeah.
what does he say about this?
Man, so recently I'm in, actually today's my 4 year anniversary of my being a city council member, and getting into politics was not on my list of things to do in life.
Yeah.
Wasn't really interested in politics at all. But I joined the fraternity Kappa Alpha Psi when I went to SUNY College of the Westbury. And excuse me. And happy 114th years because yesterday was our anniversary. But when I joined the organization, a brother of mine, God rest his soul, Jonathan Hicks, he was a very impactful journalist for the New York Times. He told me to come to a lunch meeting with him, and I went to a lunch meeting, and I was able to have two conversations with two sitting elected officials. One that was Ruben Diaz Jr., who was the former Bronx borough president, and the other one is the current Speaker of the New York State Assembly, Carl Hastie. Two of them are my mentors, and just listening to them, just seeing. I think one thing about me, I always love seeing people that resemble or went through what I've went through in different arenas and spaces. And once I saw those two gentlemen, and my major at the time was politics, economics, and law, I went to intern. And fast forward, I went and now I'm a city elected official. And when my father found out that I was running for office, he was in awe. Like he goes and speaks about me highly to everybody. He kind of looks at it as I took the name that he gave me, the Raleigh name, and I kind of reinvented it opposed to what he kind of had the name as. He was incarcerated, he got deported back, he wasn't able to further his education, where I was able to go to private school from early childhood to 12th grade. I graduated with a bachelor's in politics, economics, and law. I have a master's in public policy and public administration with focus on policy, and I graduated with honors for my master's. I'm a sitting professor at the same college that I graduated from. I was able to impact my community that I grew up in on a very large scale. And he hears this because his friends from the area are like, oh my gosh, I just got a piece of letter from your son. He looks just like you, man. I'm proud of you, man. I'm proud of you. I know you're proud of him. So he's really proud of the fact that no matter of all the adversities that I've went through in my life. And not only me, my brother too. My brother's a big time plumber. He does amazing things. He just bought a big house in Jersey. Like he's doing great things. My sister, she works in foster care. She's a supervisor. She does tremendous things. And I think one of the biggest fears he had was I'm not around in my family. Because I think as men, we know that as fathers, we know that we're leaders in our family. And when he felt like he wasn't there to lead, he didn't know what was going to happen. So I think now, to answer your question, he's extremely proud of me. He wants me to keep going and continue to keep elevating our Raleigh name.
Man, that is so cool that he's proud of you, and why wouldn't he be? I mean, that's amazing. Um, I went through 12 years of private school too, and in high school I went to all boys school as well.
You know exactly what I went through then.
I do, man, I do, and so I get it, man. What was it like? Some of the dudes that I went to school with, man, they were not the nicest dudes in the world. Like
Man.
because, and I think that like I grew up on the north side of St. Louis, which was a pretty bad neighborhood, and the school that I went to was in like a wealthy one, and
Yeah.
I would say 90% of the guys that were in my class, very wealthy families. And then they called us like because I did a work grant to get through school, so I worked on the school grounds on the weekends, and it helped me pay for school. But you know, growing up, it wasn't just high school, but and I'm a little ahead of you in life. But when I was a kid, broken families, they were, I think, getting normalized, but they weren't normal yet. And if you came from a broken family, like, oh man, like you were just targeted. Were
Yeah.
were, were you were you pushed around a lot growing up because of everything going on?
Um, I wouldn't say pushed around, but I would say that I found myself in a lot of unfortunate situations because at that time, the lack of guidance. The lack of having a male figure there to kind of guide you through your adolescent life is very important. I went to Mount St. Michael Academy. I remember my freshman, sophomore year were the most challenging times, and those were the
Same.
times where it was actually from eighth grade to sophomore year, and that
Okay.
was the time where my father, I wasn't going to visit him. We wouldn't talk as much on the phone. And I was going into the adolescent years. I'm going to the teenage years, and I'm trying to figure things out where I would go around the wrong crowd of people. Um, I was fighting between wanting to be a scholar in school and wanting to be a tough guy. Um, Girls come into play at that time too, so you're trying to impress every girl in the book. So I think at that time it was just I was a confused young boy. Looking back, very confused, didn't know what I wanted to do. And what would have helped me more is to have that older male figure to give me that guidance, which was kind of missing. I did mention before that I did have that at churches, at coaches, but those are just temporary. Those clergy members, they have to go back to their own families. Those coaches have to go back to their own families. After you had me for that good 2 to 3 hour time period, I have to go back to my own misery of not having that male figure around. And my mother, who's the hardest working woman on this planet, very beautiful soul, she was working. She kept us in the house. So she had to work a lot to make sure that the mortgage was paid. So she couldn't come to my games. So the lack of support from parents, which I don't fault her or hold anything against her, but the lack of support from the parents when you're at your games and you're seeing your teammates, parents there, especially their fathers there cheering them on, pull them to the side like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do this, and you're just there kind of like, you know what I mean? And you kind of feel lonely at that time, but you don't want to admit it. You don't want to express it. And it's traumatic. It's traumatic. And the emotions goes from sorrow and sadness to anger. And then the anger goes and you take the anger out on people that it's not supposed to be taken out on. So yeah, I went through a very, traumatic, challenging time in that period of time in high school.
Dude, if I could reach to the screen and give you a hug right now, I would.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you.
That for those of you guys in the audience, if you don't think your job is important, rewind what you just heard.
Yeah.
Because brother, what you just said, that hit me so deep cuz if any young man or girl um has their dad, nothing against moms, but has their dad in those stands and to be able to come and talk to you about whatever the game was, the practice was, just having that support, getting in that empty car or, going back home where there was nobody there, like that sucks. It does. And I'm not trying to throw a pity party, but I am what I'm doing here is I really, really want to highlight you men in the audience that if you don't, if you never think that this is important, exactly what Kevin just said, man, that is an unsaid, probably unspoken thing that we bring to the table with these kids that will forever be impacted.
Yeah.
And a young man or a woman who's playing those sports and those activities, they can't articulate that at that age. It's not until later on in life they look back and they can articulate it like you just did beautifully.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Do your oldest daughter, she's 9?
Yeah. 9 years old.
Does she ever ask about like, what it was like growing up for you and that kind of thing?
Yeah. Wow, man. The thing about talking about this, they bring so much emotions, to you. Yeah. The other day my daughter asked me, she's like, "Hey dad, what did you like doing when you was 8 years old, 9 years old? Like we were talking about Christmas time." She was like, "Oh, can you remember what you was at?" And at that time I kind of broke down to her. I'm like, "Baby girl, I don't remember a lot from my childhood. Um, and a lot of stuff I do remember were technically good things. I was so traumatized that when good things happen, I quickly got away from it because I know that time was going to be short, and I didn't want to get lost in that happiness. And yeah, she asks me all the time, like, "Hey, do you remember this? Do you remember this?" And um, I'm sorry, Larry. Ah, man. But
You're good, man.
at that time, nah. At that time, I couldn't give her that. I couldn't give her those things because I didn't have those good memories to give her regarding that time. But I do remember this. My oldest daughter is actually the only my only child that saw my father. We took a and this year I'm gonna bring all of them to down there. Hopefully, if he doesn't get back here, but we went to go see my father, and she was about 2 years old at that time, and just seeing their relationship, just seeing his relationship with her, it's like he was for lost time. He was just catching up on lost time, and I tried my best to explain to her and showcase the importance of why I I do everything now the way I do, why it's important for me on every Saturday, no matter my job. I don't have a timesheet. My job is 24/7, but my staff knows Saturday mornings, that's for my kids. I have to take them to their programs. I have to be there when they're doing their programs. I just don't want to take them there. I want to make sure I'm there when they're doing their programs. I want them to see me there. I make sure it's important that I take them with me to work and go around the community. We do a lot of community givebacks. We do a lot of community things, and I want them to see that. I want them to. I want them to be proud of me as their dad. I think that's my biggest goal in life. I want you to grow up and be proud, and I want you to understand that I am not a perfect person. I am not perfect, but what I would do, what I will always do, is be present. And I think that's an important factor of fatherhood. So yes, to answer your question, Larry, I'm sorry. I know I go into my deep dive, but yeah, she asks me. I try my best to give her bits and pieces, but I don't want to give her the whole thing. I don't think she's at that age right now where I could share, like, hey, in high school I was going through this, and that. But she does understand that granddad was incarcerated. He did get deported back to Jamaica, and that's why I expressed to them it's important to understand that there are consequences in life, and when you don't abide by certain rules and certain laws, your freedom, your family, the things that you love most in life can be taken away from you.
So true, man. I love the honesty that you have with your daughter. Your oldest is about the same age as my youngest, and I have 18, 17, 11, and 9. And
Oh wow, you in the heat of it now.
oh man, that's an understatement. But it's my two older guys have asked me questions here and there, but the funny thing is they know the overall 30,000 foot view. And my 11-year-old is getting super curious now, and he's asking me all kinds of questions, but he's like a curious soul. But it's funny, like my dad and I don't have the same last name because my mom did get remarried when I was 4, and that guy adopted me. So I have a different last name than my biological father. And I've always stuck to that name.
Yeah.
And if we were there for Christmas, and my 11-year-old asked my dad, cause he does not know the story yet. And he's like, why do you have a different last name than my dad? And my dad looked at me, and I looked at him, and I was like, I just kind of like gave him this look of like, he hasn't asked me that one yet. This one's new. So I didn't want him to think he was hitting him with questions. And so, but yeah, I was just curious about that. But what I'm really excited to hear about, because we've talked about some tough things, man, for you and I don't think people truly understand what that's like until you've been through it, because there's a million tiny moving pieces with things like that. But dude, this movement you've created, man, like, good for you. Like, seriously, like, what an amazing movement. Please tell us all about it.
So the Dad Gang.
The Dad Game. I
The
just love the
Dad
name
Gang.
too, man. So cool.
Yeah, I think we wanted something that was shocking. When you think of gangs, a gang is a group of people.
Oh, you said gang.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you
So
said Dad Game. Okay.
no,
Okay. All
Dad
right.
Gang.
Dad Game. Let's go.
So it's the Dad Gang. And this is one of our apparels. I am Dad Goals.
I saw that. Yeah.
We want dads to be proud to be dads. The amount of integrity it takes to be a father is something that is not shortcoming. And we want fathers to be very proud of being the great fathers and dads that they are. So in 2015, the founder of the Dad Gang, Sean Williams, my fraternity brother, he used to live in Long Island, and he was in Long Island with his daughter. And a Caucasian lady had came to him and stated, "I'm glad you stuck around. Oh, she's beautiful. I'm glad you stuck around." And he caught a lot of offense to that comment.
Well, yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Fast forward, it was about 3 years later, but we already created the Dad Gang. I was working, and I always post my kids. My kids are everywhere on social media, and everyone loves it. It's like they're watching my children grow up. Anytime people run into me, like, "Oh my gosh, how's Brooke? I saw that she was doing swimming. Oh, she's in level 5 yet?" Like they love just seeing my kids grow. And a lady came to me, and I had 2 daughters at the time, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, your kids are so beautiful. Same mother?" And I was just there like, so what we realize is and it's for a reason too, but what we realize is there's a negative notation out there and a stereotype that black fathers aren't involved in their family, period. And when we in 2015, when the Dad Gang was formulated, and fast forward to about 2017 when it starts kicking off, we just wanted to put out positive imagery of black fatherhood. So if you were riding your bike with your kids and you put it online, we were contacting you, asking you if it's okay, and then putting it on the page. Um, if you were reading to your children, putting it on the page. Anything that you had any engagement with your child, we were putting it on the page. At that time, our DMs were jam packed with not only dads, but mothers that wanted to know how can they best support the relationship between their child and their father, because maybe the mother and the father weren't together and they wanted to make sure that they were a good support system into the co-parenting. And then you had those fathers who did not have a good relationship with the mother, so they had an estranged relationship with the child, but every time we were putting up a picture, they would miss their children more. So we were creating these communities where people were just asking us different kind of questions. And we're all doing different things, and we want to make sure we're creating a bigger community. So what we decide to do is, hey, we're gonna do chapters or like groups in each state, and then we're gonna go there. So if you're somebody from Georgia, and being that a majority of us was from New York, if you're somebody from Georgia, we have 5 to 10 dads down there that you could connect with, because community and tribes are very important. So if you're down there and you're going through something, there's a group of dads down there that's a part of the Dad Gang umbrella that you could connect with. So what we do is the Dad Gang is called the Dad Gang. We're on all major platforms. We have a major merch because we want dads to look good. Dads should look good because that's what we do, and feel good when you're going outside with your children. But we also go to different states and we go to landmark areas where we host something called the March of Dads. The March of Dads is pretty much imagine where's a popular place in St. Louis? I'm sorry, Larry. Like a popular
Oh,
landmark.
oh, the Arch for
The
sure.
Arch. Of
Yeah.
course, the Arch. I should have knew that, right? So imagine you're coming down on a Sunday afternoon, right? And you see over 400 dads with kids there, all ages. I'm talking about grandfathers and fathers walking, dads with strollers, dads in carry-ons. That image to you uplifts you. You're probably gonna stop like, guys, what are you guys doing? I want to join. Like, I'm gonna walk out with my kids. I want to join. This is powerful right here. So that's something we do. We also host something called dad activations. It's where we have dads read to their children, because reading is very important. Literacy along the entire United States right now is struggling. I know it's struggling in New York. So we preach for fathers to read to their kids, but also do an activity with their kids. So last year, 2024, we partnered with Lego, and we were able to do activations in each of these states where the dads were able to build, Legos and things like that with their kids, because that time that you spend with your child is playing with them, building something with them. They'll remember that time. That's times that I wish I had. Um, So that's pretty much what the dad gang is. We also have something called the dad house. It's spelled dad Haus house, where it's just dads. We come together in a circle and we're talking to each other. Like we're having a full blown community conversation. And now this year we're going to be doing it more monthly. It's something we kicked off last year, but we want to do it more monthly now where dads can just get together. I'm like, hey man, I'm going through it. I feel drained. I feel like I'm not appreciated in my household, but I don't know how to express that. So I want to express it amongst my brothers. And maybe I felt that way. I'm like, I understand what you're going through, my brother. And when I felt like that, these are certain things, steps that I took to feel better. Try these. You know what I mean? And that creates that tribe of fathers amongst each other that can help uplift each other. So the dad gang is something that is very, very beneficial to fathers out there. And it has been something that has been helpful to me as becoming a dad. So I want to salute to Sean. And I want to salute to Ed and the rest of our dad gang team for this tremendous group.
Well, dude, if you ever come to St. Louis for one of those things, I would.
I think we are, Larry. I
Dude,
think
I
we
would
are.
love to be a part of that. Can
I
I be a
think we
part of
are.
that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So we had started with just Black fatherhood,
Yeah.
but we're starting to open up to more than Black fatherhood, man. Fatherhood is a tribe. No matter if you're Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter. Fatherhood is a huge tribe, and I think it's very important for us to network our children at a very young age. I'm talking about, I want my kids to connect with your kids at 10 years old. So by the time 20 years from now, you don't know what your kid might end up doing, my kid might end up doing, but they'll be able to connect and network and collaborate and hopefully uplift this fatherhood and parent movement that we're doing today. So, yes, Larry, you're more than welcome. I would love for you to join us next time. And I'm going
Oh,
to talk to
dude.
the team about possibly doing it in St. Louis as well.
Man, if you bring it here, like we'll rally as many troops as
Yeah.
possible to come support that. Like that
Yeah.
would be amazing. What do you tell guys? And I've been in this space for almost 10 years with our tribe. And do you know who John Bernthal is?
No.
The Punisher. He was on Walking Dead and Hollywood
Yes,
actor.
yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes, yes.
So I was on his podcast called The Real Ones, and there's this clip that he clipped out, and he shared it, and it became a viral clip,
Oh.
and it's really fascinating. And the funny thing is I'll share with you what the clip said, and then I'll share with you some of the positive comments and the negative ones. And I'll be very honest, the positive and the negative. I used to live on both sides of those on that street, right? So John asked me, he's like, "What do you think is missing?" With men. And I said, that one's easy. It's tribe. It's community. Most men walk the earth isolated and quiet and quite frankly, miserable. And they won't say it out loud, but they're surrounded physically by people, but mentally, emotionally, even spiritually, we do not, we're in the hole. If you've ever seen the movie Shawshank Redemption, one of the worst punishments was you go in the hole for 30 days, right? It's isolation. And I said, a lot of guys really embrace this lone wolf mentality. I'm the lone wolf. Well, if they really understood what happened to the lone wolf, they wouldn't really like it because the lone wolf dies. The wolf has either lost his pack and then he dies, or he's injured and he can't keep up with the pack and he dies, or he leaves the pack because of old age and he's going to go die. Either way, that's the fate of the lone wolf. And the pack is strong because of the wolf, and the wolf is strong because of the pack. And before I joined my first tribe in 2015, I thought it was a bunch of BS because I was just like, well, I should be able to handle it. And then I got into tribe and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a totally different way of living. And it is way better than trying to navigate this on my own. And the comments on that post are like, yeah, tribe is for weak men or whatever. And then other guys are like, no, tribe actually makes you stronger. And then, there's people commenting, but I can understand both sides if you never really experienced it. But, what do you say to men who are like, I don't need tribe. I can handle everything myself?
One of the greatest basketball players of all time is Michael Jordan, correct?
Yeah, I love Michael Jordan.
So when Michael Jordan was playing for the Bulls and he went on his three-peat twice, did he do that by himself?
No.
No. Prior to that, Michael Jordan was in the league for a few years before he even won his first championship. Once he got the right tribe and right team around him, he was able to accomplish his goal. Um, I don't want to be cliche and compare life to sports all the time as a man, but it seems to be something that men could kind of associate themselves with and understand. A lot of the times we cannot move forward in life if we do not have a strong team with us. Us as men, we confined within ourselves and struggle within ourselves for several different reasons. It could be that the fact that you try to open up once to somebody and you try to open up to the wrong person and they clowned you or they made you feel less of a man, where in a sense you don't want to open up or speak with anyone. I've been in that side. Recently, actually, I've been on that side where it's like, I don't really want to speak about my emotions, but then realizing I'm not speaking about my emotions, but my attitude sucks right now. I'm snapping. I'm catching stupid attitudes for small things just because I cannot open up about how I feel about something. Just because I don't want to speak and to my tribe or create this tribe. And what I would say to men out there is this: you cannot navigate life by yourself. It's impossible. It's impossible to navigate life by yourself. You are going to need people in your life that can help you elevate and achieve any goal that you set within yourself. Tribes are important for us as men. Since we were younger, we have always wanted affirmation from our boys, from a girl, from anything. That's why half the time men out there who don't have the right guidance get affirmation from the wrong things. Affirmation is something we need. And the best way to get affirmation is to create a community around you that only wants the best for you. And I think that we should understand that. That's the difference. That's what we're lacking and missing. I think when us as men, we do it, it might not be for the good reasons. It might not be the right group. You might be talking to your group that you talk about football and you might want to talk to emotions about them, but that might not be the group that you want to talk about that. And one thing I learned in life, I'm 37 now, and I realized that everyone in my life should serve a purpose to me. And I do also understand that everyone in my life is not going to serve every single purpose for me. So I may have a group of friends where we like to talk about finances, but I may not like to talk about my spiritual background with them. I may have friends that I like talking about my spiritual background, but I can't go and talk about, athletics with them. I think it's important for us as men to understand the community and tribes that we create around ourselves, but for a man to think that he can navigate life, not even a man, a person to think that they can navigate life by themselves is going to be truly challenging for them. So to answer your question, to the men out there, I would strongly suggest to create a tribe. There are demons and battles that you are fighting each and every single day. And if you continue to fight these battles alone, they're just going to get stronger. They're going to find your weaknesses and they are going to conquer the battle within you. And if you don't have the right people around you to make sure that you are fighting the back against those battles, then you will lose the war. And I think that's something that we need to understand as men. We can't always go to the bottle to get a drink anytime you're going through something. You can't always think being promiscuous is going to help you out. You can't always think being aggressive, outlandish. Even going to the gym, I love working out, but going to the gym after I pump that weight, I still have to go back into that, the feelings that I have felt. So it's very important for us to have areas where we're able to create these communities and tribes that we could trust to help elevate us. So that's why I would say to all the men out there.
I love that, man. And I agree with you 1,000%. In fact, I think if more men who are fathers had tribe, it would make our job significantly more fulfilling, easier, less frustrating. Because you got people that want, like you said, want the best for you. They're going to point you in the right direction. When you're faced with a battle, sometimes it's very, very hard to see clearly what the next move is. But
I
somebody
actually have
else,
a bold take. I think if there was more support for fathers out there, society would be a better place.
I agree. I 100% agree. Um, you wrote a book actually,
Yes.
and it's a children's book. It's
Yes.
called Hopping Through Life Book.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that.
So last year, my children and I wrote a book. They're co-authors on it. I'm really big on now, like I spoke to before, elevating the Raleigh name. And something my kids are very into. During the pandemic, everyone's into being an entrepreneur. So I had my kids where everyone's home, we're watching stuff. They want to start a vending machine business. They want to start this business, that business. And something I do with my kids a lot is read to them, and we read stories. It's a time for us to express ourselves, but also I try my best to figure out ways to express my stories to them on things on how I felt. So if you read the book Hopping Through Life, it's Hopping Through Life Tales of a Fatherless Father. It's about a rabbit named Remy, and he has a daughter named Bella. And with Remy and Bella, Remy tries his best. He lives in a town called Meadowville, and he tries his best to be an amazing dad to Bella. But as he's being a father to Bella, he goes through these emotional, traumatic states where he misses his father. So this happens to me where I would be out with my kids and I'm not looking at myself as a mirror, but I may look at another father as a mirror, just pushing his kid on a swing. And I might go into a little traumatic state where, man, I wish I had the opportunity with my father. Or I might be at a game, or swimming. My kids are swimming right now. We all just learned how to swim last year, actually. And they're swimming now. And my daughter, my oldest daughter, she's in level 5. My youngest daughter's in level 4. And I'm watching them. I'm like, oh man, I wish my father was here. Watching me and taught me how to swim, or even watch me take a jump shot. Like I wish my father, I was decent in ball. I wish my father watched me play ball growing up, and just like, yes, my son, you saw a 3 point. Like I just wish these moments happen as I'm doing them myself. But how can I go through this space where I'm like, I don't want to be selfish and take this moment away from my children, but I think it's important for them to understand how I feel so they could understand the way that I parent, the way that I am a father to them. Dad, why do you want to do this? Why do you always want to do this all the time? Why do you want to do this? Why can't we be in our iPads? No, we have to do this, this, and that. And what I wanted to do was we created this book together because we love reading books at nighttime. And I wanted to showcase to them a lot of the things that I go through as being a father. So Hopping Through Life Tales of a Fatherless Father was something that, happened last year. My 3 beautiful children, Brooke, Kate, and Caleb, they're co-authors. They're authors now. I like them to go around and tell people that, like, hey, I'm an author. Did you know I'm an author? I think that's very, very powerful. And really just wanted to create a story. And I think it's important also. I wanted to create a story and also create an avenue for fathers to be comfortable with sharing your stories with your children, sharing sharing your upbringing with your children. I think when we were growing up, our parents, it was like, do this, do that, do this, don't ask me no questions. And our kids right now, they have so much questions. Like there's so much things that go there. Hey, why is it like this? Why is it like that? Be comfortable with expressing a lot of your childhood trauma to your children in a sense where it's not going to be too heavy for them, but in a sense where they can understand you as a human being, because I think that's important, and that will help your relationship with them as they grow older, because there could have been stuff that happened and in with your situation with your father while he left, and if he had an avenue or even a tribe like how we have tribes, they could have been there for him where he could have came back and expressed those feelings, to you, where it would have had your relationship in a better place. And I think that's truly, truly important. So that's why, Hopping Through Life Tales of a Fatherless Father by me and my children, that's why we wrote the book. And we want to continue writing books about fatherhood, but using characters that children could relate to, like bunnies, rabbits and things like that.
I love that, man. In 1,300 episodes, Kevin, I never really once understood when I'm doing something with my kid, I enjoy it. you know, like maybe it's swinging them on the swing, chasing them around the playground, wrestling with them. There's that small part of me that feels something. And I never knew what it was until you just said it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, huh. And there it is. So this has been amazing, to say the least.
Thank you.
I want to make sure that all the guys can connect with you, can support you. What is the best way for guys to connect with you, go find your book and all that good stuff?
Great. Thank you so much, Larry. You can connect with me on all social media platforms. It's my name, Kevin C. Riley. You can find me on there, and you could purchase and support our book through hoppingthroughlifebook.com. You can also purchase on Amazon. My daughter and I, we recorded an audio book together with the book, which was a great experience. I loved every single moment of it.
That's awesome.
So yeah, please find us, support us. You can also find us at thedadgang.com and the Dad Gang on all social media platforms.
Awesome. Well, guys, not to worry. We're going to have all the links in the show notes for you. We covered a ton on this show today. Head on over to thedadedge.com/517 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/517 for this show. We'll have all of Kevin's links in there, his book, obviously the Dad Gang as well. And we'll keep you guys posted on if and when he comes to St. Louis, and we'll all my local guys keep your eyes and ears open for.
No, we're definitely coming.
Oh, you're definitely coming. Do you know the date?
We just got to figure out when. We definitely gonna make it.
They're coming, guys, and we're gonna support them. So, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on today, man. This was awesome.
Larry, thank you. I had a great time.
Me too.